This is Third Space Live. I'm Jody Peel, Executive Director of Third Space Charity in Kelowna, British Columbia. This show offers conversations, ideas, and stories to build mental wellness and hope. Today's March 26, 2020, and this is episode 1. Today we're going to talk about supporting kids and families during the COVID-19 crisis with guest Deanne Leung of Stepping Stones Counselling Group. Learn more about our charity, programs, and access our video library at thirdspacecanada.org. Also, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and sign up for our newsletter on our website. I'm broadcasting live from my closet today, which is my temporary workspace during the COVID-19 crisis. Before we begin, I want to send love and gratitude to all the essential workers worldwide who are helping keep us healthy right now, and they're keeping our economy moving and goods available so that we can survive this crisis. Today on Third Space Live is Deanne Leung. She holds a master's degree of counseling psychology, and she's a strong supporter of children and family in our community. She uses creativity, nature, and self-care as part of the healing and wellness process, and her practice focuses on individual as well as family therapy, play and expressive therapies, attachment, grief, and loss. She's also the mom of our community's most famous therapy dog, Murphy. Now Murphy's in the green room and he may or may not make an appearance later in our show today. So welcome. Without further delay, I'm going to invite Deanne to join us. And I do want to apologize in advance that we're having technical difficulties due to the demands being put on the internet and our service provider right now. So please be patient, and we thank you in advance. So we're going to jump into the show now.
There she is. Okay, thank God.
We're connected.
Thank you, Lord. You're here.
How are you?
Welcome. I hope the intro was did you some justice and
Thank you.
was sufficient. Yeah. So welcome everybody. This is Deanne. Is Murphy
Hi,
there?
everybody. Where is he?
And that is the famous Murphy in our town. This boy is a superstar. Everybody knows and loves him. So thank you for coming.
He's sort of laying on the couch. He's adapting to change too.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of nice to be home for us who don't have a service dog that works with us every day, to be home and have the love and support of our dog or our other pets all day. So you're
Lots
lucky.
more time with them, hey?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
So we're here today to talk a little bit about supporting parents and kids and teens. How do you want to start?
Oh, there's so much I want to talk about. I want to know how people are doing. I'm really missing my community. I want to know how parents are. I want to know how everybody is, right? I want to know if there's specific things that would be helpful for people. I've got some ideas in mind and things that I think might be good to chat about, but certainly I want to hear from the community if there's things that would be helpful for us to touch on.
Sorry to interrupt, can you see the questions on your end, or is it only me that can see those?
No, I can see them popping up.
Okay, perfect. So everybody send in questions and we'll try our best to answer them.
Definitely sending questions. And if there's resources people want, or if there's, things that would be helpful, we can certainly post those later as well too.
Great.
Yeah. So I want to talk about parents first, right? Because I think that how they're doing and where they're at really is of huge concern, and I want to support them because they're the ones that are covering all the bases right now. Mm-hmm. Right? And so I'm just interested in how parents are doing, where they're feeling that they might be feeling challenged, right? And where they're feeling that they're being successful, because I want to celebrate that too.
Good idea. Yeah.
Yeah, so if there's anything that parents need, I really, really recommend being very gentle with yourselves right now, not allowing that critical voice to be droning on and on about the things that we feel like we should be doing or the things that we feel like we're not doing well enough, and to really focus on relationship and regulation and connection at this time.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm on social media too much right now. I'm trying to limit it, but it's weird because we're so isolated right now that it's weird not to be connected. So I'm doing that a lot. And luckily I have a group of ladies that are also texting each other, but I see a lot of them are here today. Thank you.
Oh, good.
But there's so much on social media about making sure your kid doesn't fall behind in school, and
Yeah.
take this an opportunity to maximize and teach this and do that. And I don't know about everybody else, but until yesterday, having two teens, just keeping them in the house and trying to constantly explain to them and fight with them about why they have to stay home and that was more than that took up all my energy right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we want to, you know, be mindful of our capacity, right? And to be not having huge expectations on ourselves, to be having massive to-do lists and projects and you know, revolutionary change. I think it's in the small daily practices that we really want to focus on right now, right? Of just that very gentle self-care, that taking care of self first, and then setting kind of the tone and the regulation, you know, for the family. And we can't do that if we're feeling really frazzled. We can't do that if we're over inputting social media, because that really heightens us and that really releases cortisol. So if we're really maxing on cortisol and then we try to go and connect, we're just, you know, brains will mirror brains. So we're going to end up just, you know, having really tricky, hard times that could look like conflict.
I love that. I mean, it's a very well-known metaphor, I guess, that whole idea that you put your oxygen mask on first and on your children afterwards. And I'm the worst offender. I'm terrible at self-care. Tell me more about that.
I really encourage people to do small doses, right, of everything, right? When I talk about play, I mean small doses. When I talk about self-care, I mean small doses. And we want to kind of, you know, kind of build those in throughout the day. And particularly when we feel like we're outside of ourselves, right? When we notice that our voice is changing and we're coming from that really kind of top brain approach rather than a bottom brain approach. And maybe we'll chat a bit about that too, Jody.
Yeah, sure.
But, you know, in the morning, if you have 5 minutes, what can you do that's regulating and helpful for yourself to get grounded and centered before you're connecting with kids, or before you're connecting with your spouse, or before you're connecting with anybody that's in your, you know, circle of influence right now? And that practice looks different for all of us. And I really encourage people to go to their resources, right? And keep it simple, right? I don't think we have to start with a massive overhaul of our self-care plan. I sat down yesterday and I did some coloring because I had a little break, and it was like, oh, it just felt so refreshing to use a different part of myself than the thinking, you know, present part. I needed to kind of just zone out for a little bit and do something that had some pattern and repetition to it to help bring my brain down a little bit. So anytime I think about self-care, I think about, you know, helpful interventions throughout the day. I think about something that has pattern in it, something that has routine in it, and something that has regulation in it. So that's why coloring is such a wonderful thing for brains of all ages. You know, and to just keep that available, keep it out, make sure that it's visible, and that anybody in the family or yourself can go and access that at any time, just to get, you know, a little bit more, you know, regulated again.
Yeah. I get it. That's a great idea. I do enjoy coloring. I'm going to try that. Yeah. I've been going outside and doing yard work. I have a big yard, and that's been really helpful.
And it's really regulating, because you think about raking, right? How repetitious that is, right? And what a sense of, you know, I accomplished something, you know, in a short period of time. And that's can also be a relational activity, just like coloring can, right? I can be not able to speak to you because I'm feeling really in conflict with you, but we could sit down and color side by side and not say anything for a while. And that's ideal, because what we really want to do is get that brain regulated before we go in with reasoning, and before we go in with expectation, or all of that kind of stuff that can be overwhelming for a brain that's feeling kind of shut down. So like you said, gardening, getting kids out, playing in the dirt, planting seeds, you know, things that that are very grounding and nourishing at this time, and can be done in small doses.
Yeah, I love that. I find with teenage boys in my home, sitting around the bonfire has been really good, because we're not expected to talk or do anything.
Yeah. And you're watching
just
the
kind
flames.
of chilling out. We're watching the flames, and
and how restorative that is, right? Of just being in a circle, no expectation other than you were just kind of being present. Yeah. Yeah, and I think with teens, you know, those are kind of those wonderful approaches to just getting doses of connection and regulation, in amongst all the other stuff that you guys are dealing with right now, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, being around a fire, you know, looking around your home and your property for things that you can do like that helps you gather, getting out things like Lego again if it's been put away, getting out your rocking chair again if it's been put away.
That's already happening. The
Yeah.
kids have nicely transitioned from almost, it was quite weird, Deanne, I've never seen it, that they're moping around. They were clearly very stressed out and impacted by what's going on. And there was a turn yesterday. They started doing their projects. I've got one boy who wants to make airplanes, remote airplanes and Lego. And yeah, they're starting to do their hobbies now. And that's helped. It's like a totally different planet in my house today, thank goodness.
Yeah.
But
yeah. And day by day, week by week, moment by moment, things are shifting, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think we just want to put some things around the edges to help us regulate those shifts that we don't have a lot of control over right now.
Yeah, I like what you said. And I spoke to Ed Weiss, one of our team members, yesterday about this, about how I feel disconnected. My brain and heart feels disconnected, or I don't feel centered, or I don't feel inside my body. And all those things you just said, I'm now realizing are the moments that I have felt in my body.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit more
baking
about that.
together, right?
Yeah.
Going back to, you know, to things that have sensory benefit to them too, right? Baking, think about the smell of cinnamon, think about, you know, how everyone has an association with vanilla and that lovely smell. Mm-hmm. And that can be a co-regulating thing if I'm not a great baker, so I don't know that I would do that. It might be dysregulating for me. But if that's in your wheelhouse, bake. Yeah. If gardening's in your wheelhouse, garden. If playing the guitar's in your wheelhouse, play the guitar. And don't necessarily do it with the intention that they must join, but think about it like an invitation to join. And I think that shifts the energy too, right? Is that I'm just going to leave a lot of invitations around and see what connects with them and with myself at different times, depending on where we're at. Because one moment I might need to wreck something and I might go to the wrecking box and find something in there I can destroy. And another moment I might need to cuddle with Murphy.
Oh, Murphy.
Where is he?
Kisses to Murphy.
To regulate a different part of myself, right? So I think about toolkits, right? And you guys know your kids best and you know their brains best. So you want to have a toolkit of kind of things that help them express, and then you want to have a toolkit that kind of things that helps them calm as well.
Tell me about this wrecking kit. I need one.
It's wonderful.
What is that?
You might just want one, Jody.
Yeah.
So I really suggest for kids who have a lot of energy and need to kind of express that, and I think all of us need to have a physical way to let big feelings out, is I suggest to people creating a wrecking box and having that as part of the environment, you know, especially if kids are having, like, you know, difficult meltdowns outside of themselves. And I put things in there like bubble wrap. I put egg cartons. Rags are really, really great because you can rip them, and that's a really satisfying feeling for the arms if you need some big arm movements. Putting things in there like a sponge for screaming, and I call them like a screaming sponge, so that way we can be providing some outlet, but also a little bit of containment for kids who might be feeling really overwhelmed by the size of their feelings. And I get creative with that, right? And I really suggest the younger the child, the more that you are involved in that process. Like, I wouldn't leave a wrecking box in a room and tell a 6-year-old, okay, go use a wrecking box. I would go in there with them and get into it, right? And I would rip paper, and I would let my body do what it needs to do, because I want to model to them that that's okay, and that this is a really healthy way for us to process our feelings rather than us getting into conflict.
I love that. Let's move into that a little bit about modeling healthy regulation right now.
Yeah.
I'm doing my best to do that too. It's not an easy thing for me to stay regulated on a good day, let alone model good regulation right now for my kids. So let's talk a little bit about that. I guess it's totally different for younger kids and teens.
Yeah, and it's different for every brain. And again, that's why I really suggest you go to your wheelhouse, right? Of what did you do at different times when you were feeling well regulated that was helpful for you, right? If it was a yoga practice and you've kind of distanced yourself from the yoga practice, could you do one pose for 3 minutes and just notice how your body feels? So again, I go really small doses because in these times where we have so much going on, those small doses are going to go further than me saying, okay, well, I'm going to get on my yoga mat for an hour today. If I haven't done that in a really long time, I'm going to set myself up for kind of feeling disappointed or feeling, critical of myself. When if I said, you know what, I'm just going to get on the yoga mat and do one pose that my body's asking for, and I'm just going to notice how I feel. Right?
Story of my life. There just seems to be this culture that's built overnight about using COVID to achieve all these things and start all these new things. And it's paralyzing sometimes. Paralyzing for me, at least.
Yeah. And I notice the same, Jody. Like, I notice it's the overwhelming amount of information is paralyzing, but also the overwhelming, I sometimes feel like there's an overwhelming amount of positive stuff, and I have to filter through because I can just get lost in noticing everything, but not really being present with everything. So I encourage people to pick 1 or 2 resources that really resonate for them and to access those in a pattern, repetitive way as well. Right? Just like if you're picking a news media that you feel is a good fit for you to get your information, is to access that in a pattern and repetitive way and filter out all of the other stuff. Right? So it's about containment too around that stuff. And that really helps us with regulation.
Yeah.
Right? I allow myself to check the news, twice a day. That's it. And I don't have cable. I don't allow that kind of marinating in catastrophe kind of stuff happening to my brain, because I know that isn't good for my brain. And
that's really important. I think we should talk a little bit more about that, because I'm struggling with some people in my personal life that are glued to CNN 24/7, and they won't listen that it's not healthy to do that. You're not gaining anything from it. The information, like you said, you check in a few times a day. That's all you need to do. I haven't had TV in my house in years, but everybody has phones and computers. And I'm trying to model that as well. What are the disadvantages? What impact does too much bombardment of bad news or media do to someone's brain? Not just adults, but kids too.
Well, one of the things that really stood out to me when I was a younger therapist, back when we went through kind of the massive tragedy around 9/11, one of the things I really noticed about the children that I was working with is that their brains didn't have the capacity to differentiate that those were 2 buildings falling down. Their brains thought those were new buildings falling down every time they saw it.
So every time they saw the visual. Oh, wow, interesting.
So for some little brains, that felt like that was a repetitious thing that was happening, because they didn't have the capacity at that time to go, oh, this is the same thing I'm seeing, right? So I think we really want to limit the imagery and the media that little brains are marinating in, right?
Wow, I never even thought about that. That's not my personal situation, but that makes sense. So from a teen point of view, what do you have to say about that? Because as teens, my kids, apart from taking every piece of electronic device out of our house, they have the freedom to access information, and I really can't control that. Yeah.
So I go to a place of being curious. So I can't control it, but I just keep going. I'm really curious. Like, where do you guys get your information? Like what do you read that resonates for you? Because I'm super interested. I have no idea what 16 or 17-year-olds are where they're getting their current information. So I get really curious, and then I ask them, what's it like for you to hear that? What's it like for your body when you read stuff about what's happening in Canada? Right? Is there anything that would be helpful? So rather than trying to control, is I'm being curious and I'm asking, because this is their world and they're living in it. And I want to come alongside them and support them. I don't want to take over for them, and that's not my role. I'm not their parent, but I want some insight into what they're dealing with and what they're processing.
That I loved one of the things you said there about being curious and asking them what their body is feeling like. This is something at 50 years old I'm still learning myself, to check in, get out of here and move into here, and learn how to listen to that and trust it. how do you tell me more about how I can start that conversation with
Yeah.
my kids?
I say really simple questions. Like I say, how's your brain? And then I say, how's things from shoulders down?
Shoulders
You know,
down.
I
Okay.
don't, I try not to get too complicated. I try to be kind of casual, but I'm also at the same time saying like, I'm interested in both. I want to know what's happening up here. I want to know what you're thinking about, but I want to notice I also want to know what's happening inside of your muscles and what does your body want right now? Does your body want to break something? Does your body want to scream? Does your body, does your body want to run away? And then I want to help them find a way to discharge that energy that doesn't have a place to go right now.
Mm-hmm.
Does
That's
that make
exactly it. We all have so many feelings and thoughts, and we don't know what to do with them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
where
And
to
that's
move
why
it.
if we go back and we talk about those pattern repetition things, right? Like gardening or baking or sewing or walking or any of those things, that brings some regulation to the central nervous system part of the brain. But it is something tangible that we can do, right?
Yeah.
And it's bringing that focus much closer to right in this house, right in this moment, right in this heart, right in this body. What's one thing I can do to help myself feel a little bit more calm in a world where I have no control?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that might be breathing, right? That might be I can drink a glass of water. That might be it just depends on where you're at moment to moment. And same for kids. I think we have to be very gentle with our expectations about the capacity they have right now to manage everything that's happening for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So shifting gears here a little bit, I'm looking at some of the comments and
Good.
questions. And what about relationships between parents right now? Whether you're both in the home or you're no longer together and you're trying to co-parent. Over the last few days, I've had a few conversations around that, where different households are taking different approaches and different rules with their kids, and that's causing some conflict for the parents and the households. What can you give us? What advice can you give us about that?
I typically say, and kids do as well as parents do, right? So if there's a great deal of communication breakdown between parents, it's going to show up in other ways in the relationships in the family, right? So if both parents are having a really hard time agreeing to a schedule or agreeing to how things are going to look, of course it's gonna trickle down, right? It's gonna have a ripple effect. So I just kind of go back to that mantra that kids do as well as parents do, right? If we've got solid communication going on, we're supporting each other, we're handling a lot, but we've got this kind of energy, that's stabilizing for a kid. Right?
Right.
Whereas if a kid is hearing like, I don't know how we're going to do this, and your dad and your mom, da 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 da, and they're hearing, they're kind of sitting in that negativity, they're going to reflect that too.
Mm-hmm.
So I know it's hard. I mean, there's a reason that people got divorced, right? There's a reason that there was, a breakdown. And I think sometimes, it means that we're going to have to put some of our stuff just in the parking lot for now, and make some decisions that are about what's best for this little brain right now, what's best for this little being right now, and how do we support each other to do that rather than kind of tear each other apart or get back into our old patterns again. And if we can't, then we need to step back and we need to ask for help, right?
So what would that look like? You mean friends and families or professional help?
Yeah, both, right? I think look to your community, look to people that you already connect with. I think we're all practicing vulnerability in an exponential way right now. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a great deal of support felt when somebody voices that they're struggling and other people reflect back, yeah, I get that, right? I get that. And I can't really do anything about that, but I can hear you and I can hold space for you. And I can say that's okay. Like, it makes sense you're feeling that way. And then I gently suggest, can we pick one thing that might shift this in a positive direction?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can speak to that my group of women friends who have had this ongoing text over the last week or so, which has been hugely valuable to all of us, whether we're fighting with our teens about staying home or we're struggling with an elderly parent that we're trying to manage. Some people, life goes on. I have a blog where I was mentioning that earlier today about, despite all that's going on with COVID related issues, life goes on. Like, people are still sick from other things. People are still having marriage
We
problems.
still have all the same issues we had before
Yes.
this worldwide event.
Yeah. So here we are trying to navigate this new world that's really stressful and uncertain. At the same time, we're also trying to continue to parent and continue to our marriages and continue to take care of our parents. And it's a lot. And I don't think without that support right now, I'd be as well as I am. I mean, so I guess what I'm saying is I'm encouraging people to stay connected.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And to increase our sense of community is just kind of the drumbeat that I feel deep from within, is we need to increase our sense of community and our connections and relationship. And that is how we will support each other through this place we've never been. We have never experienced anything like this before. So that's, again, why we need to be gentle, but we need to come closer together, even though we need to be physically distant, right?
So what about people who don't have a lot of those connections in their private lives? What do we do? How do we help
I think
them?
we continue to reach out. I think we get creative. I think we get visual. I think we turn to things that help us feel connected. Small art projects, community projects, ways to be seen, right? And I think that's super important. And I really learned that this week through some of my sessions, was that it's really important for some people to be seen, right? And it's just been so strange over the last couple of weeks to be so disconnected. And the other thing I learned that was really, really interesting, and not interesting, but makes sense to me, is that some people, that they don't want to be seen. That's too much for them to now adapt to this visual way of doing things with technology. I know for me, this was a leap. It was like, if we talked about this 2 weeks ago, I'd be like, I'll find somebody to help you with that, Jody, but I don't think that's me.
I'm with you. I've been thinking about doing something online like this forever. And it was a long-term
stretching. Right?
Yeah.
We're all stretching out of our comfort zones.
Yeah.
But that stretching, to me, I'm so willing to do it because it is about community. It is about being connected. And I know that's good for me, and I know that's good for my community. And I know that when we can connect again together in physical space, that those are going to be the threads that kept us healthy, right? Or those are going to be the threads that we want to continue to weave through for the people that are really struggling, right? And are not able to reach out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So we take turns, right? We take turns. Those of us that can reach right now, we do the reaching, right? And when we need to quiet and we need to rest, we step back a little bit and we let others reach. But we just need to really stay present. We need to push ourselves to connect like this. Friday night, I've got a family meeting with 3 generations of my family. We're all going to meet on Zoom because we need to see each other, right? We need to laugh, and we need to go like, holy, this is a lot, right? We need to, like you said with your girlfriends on the text, like we need to speak our truth with our people, and then we need to connect with more people too.
Absolutely. Well, there's so many questions here. I'm not
very
technical.
I've just been chatting.
Yeah, I know. You guys can now laugh at me because I'm going to try to figure this out, but keep your questions coming. There's more comments than questions here. Okay, Melissa Appleton says, what are the ways you like to elicit feelings of connection beyond people?
Oh, wow. Well, Murphy.
Murphy, this one's for Murphy.
I'm very fortunate that I have a dog in my life. Nature, we talked about that earlier, Jody, that nature is so important for us right now, and it is something that we're all able to access. I know for some, going outside can be very scary and very overwhelming, but even if it's just, do what you can, right? Do one small thing that you can do to connect with nature, and maybe that's bringing nature inside. Maybe that's plants. I'm going to bring up plants. Maybe that's, setting up a nature table. I'm really, really fond of kind of creating visuals of connection with nature. So a leaf or a rock or a feather or something that was just available for you. Bring it inside. Let your eyes gaze on it and rest, right? Because that creates doses of regulation too. I'd be interested in hearing what other people do for connection. Music would be another one that I think is so powerful for us. Anytime I'm watching any of these things online where people are playing music off their balconies, or they're cheering for the healthcare workers, I'm just like, oh my God, that's so amazing. It's so heartwarming, and yet it is such a unifying, connecting thing that we can do. Art. right? I think right now we're all creating memories that we're going to look back on in 10 years and go, remember in 2020 when we as a world went through that together?
Yes.
I want representations of that fit, right? That are representative of all of the layers of this for us. And kids can be part of that, right? Kids are amazing creators. And that can be simple. You don't have to make that complex either.
Yes. Okay, I have a topic here from someone about wanting to hear what you have to say about facing an unprecedented amount of space in our lives. I think that from my point of view, the pace of life has become so full. We're not used to having room alone with ourselves and our minds and our thoughts. And a lot of us, knowingly or not, fill our lives over full so we don't have to feel and we don't have to deal with ourselves and our anxieties.
Yeah.
What do you have to say to that?
I think as a culture, we've become very accustomed to distracting ourselves, right? With technology, with busyness, with just that heightened level of releasing cortisol all of the time. So of course it's very unfamiliar to us to go, oh, I have an abundance of time in my home. So I think you want to go back again to yourself, and you want to ask yourself, what did I do before I felt this way? What did I do when I was younger? What did I really enjoy doing, when I was a child? Where did I fill up my cup then, right? And bring that back. Right? Start with simple. Was it coloring? Was it sorting and organizing? Sorting and organizing play is wonderful for brains, right? Brains love that because it helps them regulate and it helps them process things, right? So it might be, I do well with sorting and organizing. That's helpful for me. I think we need to be gentle again with our expectations about our time. I think you should book lots of naps in there. I think there should be lots of resting because our brains are processing so much right now. I think I like structure. So for me, I would want to create a visual schedule and I'd want to have things blocked out. I know that wouldn't work for a lot of people, but I would like there to be scheduled rest time in there where the family is having quiet time or napping time, or we're having creating or expressing time. But again, small doses. Don't do hours of it because then you're just holding yourself to, kind of being the taskmaster. This is meant to be kind of an evolving process of getting back in touch with yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm just thinking as you're talking about what I used to do as a kid, and I'm an introvert that is really good at pretending I'm an extrovert. So I used to need a lot of time alone to re-regulate after being around people, and I used to lie around on the ground and on the earth in the backyard and just stare at the sky and smell the earth and do all that. I'm going to try that because I remember that's so such a powerful thing, and I haven't done that in years.
Yeah, and experiment with that because do you remember, and maybe your brain liked this as a kid or maybe it didn't, but a lot of kids spend time upside down, right? And they experience their world kind of in these different postures, right? And I think
so true.
That gives the brain, doses of different input, but it also gives us different perspective, right? So when you talked about laying on the ground, I also thought, well, looking at things from upside down is another way for us to kind of have some quiet time and to regulate, or, over a exercise ball, depending again on what our body might want, but being creative about that. And something you had said earlier about, trying to get kids to participate in this. And my suggestion is always, I'm doing it because it's good for me. And my hope is they'll join in. And often they do, right? If they see me doing it enough, it's not that, my mom is weird and doing these strange things. It's I noticed she's done this for a week and that's okay, right? That's something that's become part of the pattern as well.
Yeah. Okay. I have another question here from Jude. Hi, Jude. Good to see you here. She's asking about her son who still isn't out of bed. My kids have been sleeping a lot too. Should I force him to get up or should I let him be? That's the question. She doesn't want to start the day with conflict. She wants him to get his rest, but I guess routine, maybe we're speaking to routine. I don't know.
Yeah. I think structure and routine is incredibly important, but again, we want to be gentle and flexible with that, right? I think all of our brains right now need more rest. But I want that rest to be, where you're going to bed at a good time, and you're keeping your sleeping habits in tune. Right. And I think some of our tendencies would be that we're going to stay up later and then sleep in, and we're going to kind of get out of our natural rhythm. And I really encourage us to try to stick with our natural rhythm, because that's part of kind of the foundation of our self-care, right? Is that, am I eating well? Am I drinking enough water? And am I sleeping well? So, I think I would have a conversation with my young person later in the day, probably not when I'm trying to get them out of bed. And I would say, how do I support you with this, right? It's important to me to know that you're taking good care of yourself. And how do I support you with this? And how do we as a family, or how do we as a parent and young person make a decision about how we're going to do this together? So I look at it as coming alongside and being curious, rather than I'm trying to control, or that I'm going to, because control's not going to get us anywhere at this point.
It never does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. It becomes an outlet for all the other stuff that we need to kind of, process differently. Yeah.
Okay. So this is my own question. It's different for younger kids and older kids, but my understanding of navigating social media with my teenagers, that social media can be good or bad. If it's always one way, and your teen is just viewing other people's wonderful lives and not connecting through social media, it could be a really negative thing. But when you're connecting online, whether you're playing a video game with a bunch of your friends live, or you're actually connecting and talking or texting, that it can be a good thing. Can you talk to me a little bit about that? Because right now the kids also have a ton of time and are on their phones a lot.
Yeah. And I think that depends on your family, and I think that depends on your kid's brain as well, right? Some brains are going to be able to regulate that, and they have other outlets and other activities, and other brains are going to really struggle, and that's going to be their only outlet. And I think you want to check in with what you know about yourself, and how your family has parameters and boundaries around social media. And then I think you want to look at your child and go, okay, like, are they coping with this? Are they managing it well? Are they, am I seeing somebody that's using this in a positive way, or am I seeing somebody that's using this in an activating way that isn't helping them move in a positive direction? And again, I'd be curious, right? I'd be asking lots of questions, like, are you finding it helpful? How are your friends and you connecting? Right. And I wouldn't let go of the reins on it, because I think the capacity for most brains to make decisions about social media is pretty limited in terms of like giving ourselves good boundaries.
For sure.
So if you already have good boundaries in place in your home about where phones are at nighttime, or how much, social media time is allowed in the day, I think you keep that practice up, right? And I think that you also talk about it. And if a change needs to be negotiated, that it's a negotiation rather than like a conflict or a giving up kind of a thing. Right. And I think we want to empower young people to feel that their self-care is theirs, right? And that they're an active participant in that. And if I see you struggling, then that's when I move a little closer.
Yeah, it's tough, and it's tough as they get older. But it's something I guess we just keep trying to do every day.
Yeah. And be gentle with yourselves, right? Some days we're going to be incredibly successful and we're going to go, yes, I handled that really well. And other days we're going to be like, I wish I had a do-over, right? And then we go and we do the repair piece, which is we acknowledge, what, I didn't handle that very well. And, I want to apologize. Right?
Yeah. And that touches on the whole idea of shame, right? Now is not a time for shame.
No. And now is not the time to have a right way and a wrong way kind of thinking about how we're coping. We're all doing the best that we can, including the kids, including the teens. Everybody's doing the best they can. And when we're stretched to capacity, how do we receive support, right? What's helpful for that brain?
Right. Well, you know what? I'm mindful of our time here today. One more question or topic would be if you could speak to gratitude practice during this time, and what that looks like and what the value of that is.
Yeah. Well, I think like we touched on is seeing how the world is reaching out to each other, seeing how the community is reaching out to each other, seeing how we're reaching out to each other within our own home, and how we're expressing, you know, gratitude for things that are important to us. We've started a little gratitude project here at our office on the corner of Ethel and Sutherland, where we're doing kind of an art project on the fence, putting hearts and showing the community that we're connected, and showing the people that are on the, you know, the front line of keeping us, keeping care of us and providing us with groceries and services, so that they're feeling love coming back from us. So do that. Find ways in your community to go out and express gratitude. Find ways in your community to show other people that you are thinking about them, even though we can't have any physical contact. And same with teens and kids. I saw that lovely posting about the drive-by birthday parties. How cool is that?
So
right?
for those of us who didn't see that, tell us about that.
There's this lovely collection of people who are driving by other kids' houses on their birthdays with, you know, streamers and balloons and signs, and they're singing and they're celebrating, even though they can't have any physical contact. And the person having the birthday gets to feel celebrated and connected and cared for. And, you know, we know kids are dealing with lots of disappointments and hurts right now. And in their world, their birthday's a pretty darn important day, right?
Yes.
And when you're 7 or when you're 5 or when you're 8, you only get to do that. You know, you only get to be 7 once. So I love this idea of connecting and creating memories, because that child will never forget that experience. They will never forget the time that 26 cars drove by my house and sang happy birthday to me.
Wow.
And what I love about the practicing of gratitude, Jody, is it really becomes clear about what we can do, right? We can express love to each other. We can reach out. We can let each other know that we are going through a hard time and we see you, right?
I love that the opportunity that this poses for a change, a permanent change in our community, giving us the opportunity to slow down a little bit and pay attention to one another and support one another. And I also love how that we have, even though that we're going through a terribly tough time, that this is every single human on the globe is going through this.
Yeah.
And the enemy isn't another human or another group. The enemy is a virus.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that's going to be a uniting force for us. This whole idea of how we're all banding together to support each other and sing off balconies and send white hearts to our hospital workers, drive-by birthdays. I mean, this is amazing. Do you want to sign off with a little comment about that and some hope?
Yeah, I mean, even just talking about it, you can feel how that chemical is being released in your body, right?
Yeah,
as you were
I'm
saying
smiling.
Right? You feel
Yeah.
you feel that release of that fabulous chemical, and we want to purposefully release as much of that chemical as we can right now, because there's other chemicals going on that are getting released too, right? So focus on how do we connect, how do we express love, how do we show compassion and caring for others, because you know, this is life changing.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Deanne, so much.
Thank you.
For joining
Lovely
me
to spend
today.
time with you.
Yeah. Can we say goodbye to Murphy too?
Oh yes. I'm going to move over there because he's now having his little rest break.
Oh, okay.
Where is he? Oh, I found a pillow. Where's Murphy?
Oh, bye, Murphy. We love you. Thanks for participating.
I think he'll be okay.
Well,
Bye, guys.
You'll both have to come back again.
Yes, I'd love to. And if people want to send questions ahead of time about specific things, I made a list of stuff I think would be helpful for other topics like grief and loss and anxiety. But certainly I want to stay connected to the community, and if there's things that people need, please let us know.
Great. Thanks, Deanne. Deanne Leung
Have a good
is
day,
with
guys.
Stepping Stones Counselling Group in Kelowna. We'll share her details later. We'll say bye to her, and then I'll sign off from the show. Bye now. Thank you so much.